In this video, I will be analyzing an argument from the article Why Education Should Be Free, written by Scott Hines for Getting Smart. Within this article, Hines makes the argument that everyone should have access to free education. First, I will begin with a summary of the argument. For most people, the single greatest barrier to accessing higher education is cost. This is due to the staggering increase in the cost of tuition, which leads to high student loan debt after post-secondary education. In fact, in the United States alone, the total student loan debt has exceeded $1 trillion. Because of this, less than 5% of the world's population ever achieves any post-secondary education. Lacking skills, training, or proper education in general often leads to the lack of viable work opportunities for the uneducated. When faced with these few opportunities, the uneducated population often becomes unemployed or underemployed. Thus, they become a drain on the social welfare system as financially non-contributing citizens. This in turn causes national economies to become sluggish and stale, according to the author of the argument. Conversely, when workers are properly educated, they are able to become properly employed, thus contributing to their nations and allowing the economy to flourish. Furthermore, educated people tend to make better lifestyle choices due to having the knowledge necessary to do so. Thus, education results in greater wellness and health. This causes mortality rates and quality of life to improve, an effect that has been proven to last generations. It has also been shown that the educated are less likely to choose violence as a means of conflict resolution, both on a micro and macro scale. Thus, by educating the population, we can create a healthier and safer world. We also know that education often provides an evolution of thought, behavior, and lifestyle. Because those who are more educated are no longer faced with a daily struggle to maintain the necessities of survival, they are able to focus their energies on the improvement of themselves and the world around them. There has also been a correlation found between education and humanitarianism, volunteerism, and social entrepreneurship, which means that by educating everyone, we allow for everyone to contribute to the advancement of mankind. All in all, because educating everyone leads to better economies, a healthier world, and global advancements, and the main barrier to education is cost, it is clear, according to the author of the argument, that we need to make education free for everyone. Looking at this article, I broke it down into 6 basic premises. First, the greatest barrier to an educated public is the cost of said education. This leads to the second premise, which is, by making education free, the number of educated people in the world would increase. Thirdly, an educated population leads to a stronger economy. Fourthly, education leads to better health and reduced violence. Fifthly, an educated population will focus more on the advancement of mankind. The sixth premise is not explicitly stated, but rather understood for the argument. It is simply that all these things, namely a stronger economy, reduced violence, increased health, and the advancement of mankind, are things that we want and that we should actively pursue. The conclusion of this argument is that education should be free. When analyzing this argument, we must first determine that the conclusion follows from the premises. In this argument, I would say that the conclusion does follow from the premises. I would say this because the premises are, basically, that an educated population means good things for all mankind, and that the easiest way to educate a population is to make education financially accessible. After all, I think that we can all agree that a better economy, increased health and safety, and the advancement of mankind are all positive outcomes, which the argument claims come directly from the education of the public. Thus, if we believe the author's claim that these things come from an educated public, and that the population would be better educated if education were free, then the conclusion that education should be free follows logically from these premises. Now, we must evaluate the validity of these premises. First, we have the premise that the greatest barrier to education is cost. The author does well to support this claim with the information that in America alone, student loan debt has surpassed $1 trillion. However, the author does not truly prove that cost is the greatest barrier, but rather that it is a substantial one. This is a pretty significant distinction, as it means that making education free might not increase those who pursue higher education to the degree that the rest of his argument depends on. Still, I believe that it is a fairly logical premise and that most people would be willing to accept that cost is a large concern, even if it is not the greatest. Accepting the first premise, the second premise, which is that by making education free, you would increase the amount of education people within the general population pursue, is logical and does not need much support. For the third premise, which is that an educated population leads to a stronger economy, is well supported by his talk of reliance on social welfare that comes with unemployment or underemployment, both which the audience would be willing to accept as symptoms of being uneducated. Similarly, the fourth premise, which is that an increased education in the general population leads to better health and reduced violence, is backed up by data, though he does not explicitly state statistics. Still, I believe that most people would accept this premise. The fifth premise, however, is somewhat of a stretch. In this premise, the author claims that increased education allows people to focus on advancing the world around them. However, no data is given to support this claim, and we all know people who are well educated and yet are not giving back to the world around them. I believe he needs stronger evidence before he could use this as a valid premise. Lastly, the sixth premise is that all the things that higher education lead to, including advancements in mankind, better health, less violence, and a stronger economy, are good and worth pursuing. This is accepted by almost everyone in society, and thus it is a valid premise. Overall, while the argument could definitely be made stronger with more evidence, I believe that the author made a fairly good argument in favor of free education.